Today, we're going to dig into a case that I'm sure you remember. It was all over the news, all over social media, and it was as captivating as it was disturbing. We're talking about the disappearance and murder of Gabby Petito. You know, what started out as this picturesque journey, this dream trip documented for the whole world to see, it just spiraled into this terrible story of domestic violence, a desperate search, and a tragic ending that really forced a national conversation. So let's get into it. All right, so first, let's set the scene. This whole thing begins with a young couple, a converted van, and what was supposed to be the American road trip of a lifetime. So you have Gabby Petito and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie. They head out in the summer of 2021. The plan? A 4-month trip, living that whole #van life dream, and of course, sharing all their amazing adventures online. To anyone following along, it honestly looked perfect.
But it didn't take long. Just a little over a month into the trip, that idealized picture they were showing the world started to show some really serious cracks. And the first public sign that something was wrong happened when they were in Utah.
And it all started with a 911 call. A witness called in, said they saw a man slap a woman during this really heated argument before the two of them just drove off. Well, that call was enough to get the police to track down their van and pull them over. Now, this is where things get really complicated. When you look at the official police report, it's interesting how they framed it. After talking to them, one officer actually wrote that Petito was the one who started the physical stuff, slapping Laundrie because she was afraid he was going to leave her there. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. The police body camera footage, which we've all seen now, showed a very different side of things. You see a really distraught Gabby Petito telling an officer that Brian Laundrie had grabbed her face so hard that it left a mark.
So here's the crucial part. You've got these conflicting stories, you've got visible evidence of a physical fight, but the police, they decide not to arrest anyone. They end up calling it a mental health crisis, not domestic violence. They just separated them for the night. He gets a hotel room, she stays in the van.
And then, just a couple of weeks after that police stop, the trip comes to this sudden, really suspicious end, but only for one of them. Okay, look at this timeline because it really shows you how fast everything just fell apart. August 27th, Gabby is seen alive for the last time. Just 2 days later, people see Brian Laundrie hitchhiking by himself. Then this weird text comes from Gabby's phone, and by September 1st, Laundrie is all the way back home in Florida without Gabby. And it took another 10 days before her family could even file a missing person report. And this right here is what made everyone's alarm bells go off. When the police show up and ask Brian Laundrie, "Hey, where's Gabby?" he and his family just refuse to say a single word. They just tell the police to talk to their lawyer. So the case just exploded. What started as a search for one missing person suddenly became a search for two, because Brian Laundrie himself was about to disappear. And from there, things just moved at this dizzying speed. First, Laundrie's named a person of interest. Then, boom, his own parents report him missing. Just 2 days after that, searchers find Gabby's remains out in Wyoming. The autopsy confirms it was homicide by strangulation. And then, a month later, they find Laundrie's remains in a nature park in Florida. You know, before they found his body, the only thing police could actually charge Laundrie with was for using Gabby Petito's debit card without permission. The FBI put out a federal arrest warrant for over $1,000 in withdrawals that were made after anyone had last seen her alive. So, the discovery of Laundrie's body brings the manhunt to an end. But there was one last, crucial piece of evidence that would officially solve the case and tell us what happened, in his own words. Right there with his body, investigators found a dry bag, and inside that bag were some of his personal things, including a notebook. And inside that notebook, a written confession. The FBI released parts of what he wrote, and it's just chilling. Laundrie wrote this story claiming Gabby had gotten hurt and that he killed her as some kind of act of mercy, a claim investigators have seriously questioned. But he admitted it, point blank. I ended her life. And with that confession in hand, that was it for the FBI. They announced that Brian Laundrie was the one and only person responsible for Gabby Petito's death. And from their perspective, the case was officially closed. But for the public, this case was anything but closed. I mean, why did this one story blow up so much? It sparked this insane level of online detective work and media coverage, and it was all fueled by the mountain of digital evidence out there, from their own Instagram posts to that police body cam footage, and even videos from other travelers. All that intense coverage also brought up a really tough conversation, and a term you probably heard a lot: missing white woman syndrome. It's a phrase used to point out how the media tends to give a massive amount of attention to cases like Gabby's, while cases involving people of color or other groups get, well, significantly less. And if you want to see what that looks like in numbers, just look at Wyoming, the same state where Gabby's body was found. While her case got nonstop global media attention, a report showed that over the last decade, 710 indigenous people, mostly women and girls, were reported missing in that same state, with barely a fraction of the coverage. It's staggering. And that really brings us back to the central question of this whole tragic story. The details of the crime are horrific, for sure, but the fact that it went so viral forces us to ask, what was it about this specific case, the social media image, the video evidence, the people involved, that completely captivated millions, while so many other similar tragedies just go unnoticed?